Welcome to the Strategic Risk Mind. This is Joe Anderson, your host. And at Fortify Risk Management, it's really important to us to bring to our clients, partners, and other folks experts in different fields of risk management. We're very excited today to have Michael Pellegrino, a good friend of mine from Resilient Minds. And Michael, you have the full name of your company is Resilient Minds on the Front Lines, which kind of indicates where the origin started was in law enforcement, emergency responders, and in helping them with a significantly increased level of stress and challenges that they face on a daily basis. And you have a little bit of background there. And so I wanted to, Michael has a 27-year career in law enforcement, married to his wife, Dee, with a dedicated team, and has also written a book called Crisis Equals Opportunity. So we'll get a chance to talk to him about that. But I want to have you start off, Michael. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what kind of led you in to working with folks on resiliency in their lives.
I was something I wish I had at a very young age, Joe, because fortunately for me, I started this career at 18 years old, and I really didn't have too many bags of trauma up to that point. But as I started my career in law enforcement, and as I went through it, you see things that people shouldn't really see. And you get called to places that, obviously you have to handle the situation. And you kind of just
Yeah.
keep on taking those bags, and you keep on stuffing those bags. It's like a big bag of garbage, and you keep on
Mhm.
stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it. And before you know it, just like anything, that bag starts to overflow.
Mm. Yeah, so you talk about this idea of stuffing bags, and I was listening to the video on your website, and it was a great analogy, right, of carrying lots of bags. And, I feel like that sometimes too. I think all of us can relate to that. And so, when you were going through law enforcement, did you feel like you were carrying a lot of bags?
When I first started, I did not. But as I came on the job and as I went through my career, 5, 10, 15 years, you start absolutely. You go and you answer these calls and you talk to people. And it's like I found myself putting my carrying their bags for them as well as too. So not only was I
Mm.
carrying my bags, I was carrying other people's bags and stuffing more in both of those bags at the same time. So,
Mm.
year 12, year 13 on the job, you get into not only what happens to you professionally, but also personally,
Yeah.
what that looks like as well. And I like to say is when three things are going good in your life, Joe, you're probably going to be okay. And people
Hmm.
always ask me, well, what are those three things? And I explain to them, if your finances are in order, your relationships are in order, and your health is in order, you're probably going to be okay. But
Hmm.
one of them things goes awry, then what happens? You start to hit that spiral.
Yeah. And so, you and I were talking earlier, and you have experience with some friends in the in the emergency responder community that have taken their own lives with some of this stuff, which is really difficult. It's a stressful job. We never want people to get there because everyone's valuable, and I believe everyone has a special purpose on this earth. And so it's really interesting to kind of go, okay, what do we go? Where do we go from there, right? And so I want you to share a little bit about um, as we're talking to companies, and you've had experience working with and designing systems and programs for some of the most stressful jobs in the world, right? Um, what are some of the greatest risks facing companies in regards to mental wellness right now?
The when your employees come in and they portray somebody that they're not. And
Mm.
I believe the biggest thing is silence when they're
Mm.
not saying anything. And one of the biggest
Okay.
things that we facilitate in our class is those open discussions so that,
Mhm.
obviously people there's three types of conversations that people want to have. And yeah, I just listened to a podcast with Mel Robbins and Charles DeWitt, and Charles DeWitt's a great researcher. And he said people either want to be heard, held, or hugged. And I thought that was really profound in that, because people just sometimes just want to be heard. And, a lot of companies are moving into that now, into the wellness field, and starting, we're getting a lot of phone calls and a lot of traction on starting not only wellness programs within the company, because the most valued person or the most valued thing in your company is your people. And
Mhm.
as leaders, if we're going to you guide them and bring them through and set them up for success and a healthy bottom line, we have to make sure that our people are first healthy and happy. And again, those two things not in the same order as well too. So we have to
Yeah.
look at that and say, okay, how can I make them healthy and how can I make them happy? And it's giving them small tools to change their belief system before the storm. Everybody's going to have a storm in their lives. So being able
Mhm.
to give those tools prior to the event, and it's just not toxic positivity either. These tools are research based. They're science, they're based off of what we know about the brain as of today and
Yeah.
moving forward. So I think that's important too, to Joe.
That's really good. I think, a lot of times our perspective on life can change based on certain things happening to us. And all of a sudden, we view things from a glass half empty instead of a glass half full. Or we start to hear everything that's being said in a negative connotation. And there's tools and ways I know, and I'm sure you guys are using to get people to be able to get out of that track, right? And a lot of the times it's just going, okay, what can you control? And let's look at this from their perspective and have a little empathy, and let's try to figure out a way to see this that isn't negative all the time, or isn't something that's going to cause you to roll into a stressful environment. And so I just think that's fascinating. I love the focus here because I think, you know, too many times our services and our treatments are after someone's in a problem, after they've gone down this bad track and they're spiraling out of control, right? And it's like, well, you want to help them there, but why can't we help them ahead of time?
And we always wait for the shoe to drop. We don't
Hmm.
know what's going on in the house. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But when they come to work, they portray something else. So we know that, and if you dig deep, you can go back as childhood trauma. Those things don't come back as, they come back as a reaction. They come back, to the prefrontal cortex when things are brought to the front of the brain. So anything could jog something that happened back in childhood, bring it all the way up to now. And
Hmm.
that's why it's so important to make sure that we have these conversations, because again, you come into work, you do your job, you go home, and you're a robot. And I can
Hmm.
remember coming home some days, and it took every ounce of my body to turn my car off and go inside, because it was just one of those days. And it was just bad thing after bad thing. So my body was reacting to a situation, and my body knew it before my brain knew it. My body
Wow.
was going through it. And that's we one of our docs, Dr. Kate, she does a great lesson on the resilient body and how it really does keep the score. Obviously, the body does keep the score. Bessel van der Hoef, great book there. And that
Hmm.
I can remember, not a couple times just not being able to turn the car off and go in the house. I
Hmm.
just it was just that powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're interconnected in our bodies, our minds and stuff, but we're also interconnected as communities. And I think, um, you know, fast back up 50, 60, 70 years ago, people lived in communities, they interacted a lot more. And with technology and with living quarters and stuff being what they are, it's very easy to get in a system where you're just punching the clock, coming home, pulling into your garage, turn on the TV. You kind of unplug from the community life. And I was talking with somebody the other night, and they said one of their pastors that they listened to said, it's better for your body to eat a Twinkie in a community than to eat broccoli alone. And I just thought that was a funny statement. I mean, it's probably not true, but
That's a good
but
one.
I thought it was interesting because we need each other. We need to be able to interact and be real. And you talked about people coming to work and just being silent or not saying what they're thinking or projecting something different than who they are. And that is harmful to us, right? We got to be able to be honest and real and interact in a way that's healthy. And I just think that's such a great point you were making. And I think it's fascinating to kind of think about, like, how do we build resilience into our people? How do we build resilience into ourselves so that when things come up, we don't have to respond in ways that are going to harm us or put us in bad positions or put us in situations where we're overwhelmed, right? And I think that's it's such a great question. And I guess that, what is the answer to that question, right? I mean, that's kind of that's the big $1 million question right there, isn't it?
Well, I can tell you this, and we know this, that resiliency can be learned through, repetition. It's kind of
Mhm.
like you go through that forest, your mind being that forest. And for 20, for 28, 20, 30 years, 40 years, you're going down that same pathway and that
Mhm.
pathway's not working for you. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, now you have to create that new pathway in your brain to change that up. Because if
Mm.
one pathway is not working, how do you change that pathway and get that new superhighway in your brain to go to the happiness rather than going right to the negative? Quick
Yeah.
example. Think about this, Joe. You're in the office and somebody calls you,
Okay.
your boss calls you and he says, "Come to my office." What's the first thing you're thinking about?
Maybe I did something wrong.
Why? But
I know.
over 83% of the time, our minds go right to the negative. And
Yeah.
and that's that super highway that we've been just, okay, what's wrong? You called me at 2 o'clock. You usually call me at 4 o'clock. Why'd you call
Mhm.
me at 2 o'clock? And it's like, no, everything's okay. I just wanted to see how you were doing. And
Mhm.
it's just like, but our mind goes, is everything okay? We go right to that negative. We go right to that super
Mhm.
highway that has been ingrained in our brain for so long.
Yeah, it's like, why wouldn't we go and say, he probably wants to just get to know me more or whatever. There's a million things we could be thinking, but we just gravitate to some of the negative things. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Um, so, we talk about, you know, some of the things that get involved with your book and kind of talking with people about how to create a resilient platform to live in, right? And a way to live that's focused on resiliency instead of like being a victim, right? And I think that is a term that people resonate to. I mean, there's a lot of times out there, and you hear a lot in the news and different things, and there are true victims. I'm not saying there aren't, but sometimes things happen to us, and we have a choice too. We have a choice if we want to stay in victim status or if we want to move on. And I think some people unfortunately stay in the victim status and then they never get out. And I think that's a problem. And so, how do we build that resiliency to where, yeah, we may have been victimized, we may have had some terrible things happen to us, but how do we lead a resilient life in spite of that, right? And I think that's a fascinating question.
Yeah, and it's just reframing the situation. Think about this. A resilient person in that situation, instead of being a victim, becomes a victor by asking himself one question. And that one
Mm-hmm.
question is this: what am I supposed to learn from this situation? How am I supposed to apply this situation? When I wake up in the morning, one of the questions I always ask myself, who am I supposed to meet today and why?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm constantly looking for whether it's that person or that's opportunity, and it could be
Yeah.
just a person, at the local Dunkin' Donuts. It doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
wherever that may be, the Starbucks. But it's having those people and looking for those connections, but just asking yourself by reframing the question. And I'll give you, I want to give you a thought with this.
Yeah.
Turning this, the what ifs in life. Well, what if this happens, or what if that happens, to even if.
Even
Even
if
if
I
this
love that.
happens, even if this happens, I'm still going to be okay. And this is the reason why. Looking for the opportunity, looking for the positiveness. Like a meteorologist says, it's partly cloudy today. Well, if it's partly cloudy, it's partly sunny.
Hmm.
So
That's
how do
so
you,
good. Turning the what ifs to even ifs. I love that, Michael.
yeah.
That is money right there. Thank you. And I think this is really interesting because, we deal with business resiliency. We deal with how a business responds to crisis and disaster, and kind of reverse engineering that process from the crisis that could happen to like, hey, how are we going to plan ahead, right? And we can do that as individuals too. And those two work together. I mean, if you have a team of resilient people, they're going to respond better as a business in a crisis. And if we have a business that is training companies and people in their company on how to be resilient in business, that's going to carry over into their personal life. And I just think it's such a great interaction. And so, talk about some of the things you guys bring to the table for companies that's a little different than a standard employee assistance program. Here's the hotline number, whatever, right?
Well, I want you to think of a 3-lane highway. I want you to think of the left lane being pre-event, pre-event in
Okay.
your life. It's kind of like
Hmm.
we always want to focus on the event, and then we want to focus on the after, and having to clean up in aisle 6. Well,
Yeah.
before it even happens in aisle 6, let's think about what can we do to give people the soft skills, okay?
Hmm.
The skills that to change their belief system so that when they're going through the event in life, that's not the time to change their belief system. That's already solid.
I see. I see.
So I want to, what we have done is we've created curriculum, we've created a one-on-one level, for whether it's for middle line supervisors or whether it's for large companies, whoever it may be, to give those peoples the soft skills prior to the event so that when they do go through the event, whether it's at work or whether it's professionally, they come out on the post-traumatic growth side of things
I
and
love
not the
that.
stress side.
I love
Stress
that.
side.
Give me an example or two of a soft skill that you're training people on.
Well, we have about 13 skills that we
Mhm.
teach. And I don't want to use the word teach. I like to use the word facilitate because we
Okay.
facilitate conversations with this. So I'm going to give you one that has changed my life.
Okay.
Gratitudes,
Yeah.
being grateful. And we know, through some of the research that we have done, that joy and anger can't live in the same headspace.
Mm.
So if you're happy, you can't be sad. So if you're thinking of things that you're grateful for, especially when you start
Mhm.
to hit that downward spiral, you're going to be able to stop yourself that much quicker and be able to jump from the negative over to the positive and spiral
Mm.
back up a lot quicker. What does that do for your company? What does that do for a person? It not only makes them a better person, mother, brother, aunt, uncle, sister, you name the title, but it makes them a better employee as well too, because now
Mm.
they feel cared for.
Yeah. And they're refocusing their mind on the things that they can be grateful for instead of things that are they're frustrated about, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's so great. I mean, what if we had gratitude campaigns? A week of gratitude. We could do some fun things, but I mean, I think that's just one thing of 13. That's so cool, and I just love it because it's less of that kind of detached, call somebody you don't know to tell them about all your problems after you have them. And it's more about how do we get on the front end and really start to change behavior and change the mindset so that our people are going to be more effective or able to work smarter and be able to work together better, right? And I think that's such a great outcome. Man, that's exciting.
Yeah, and Joe, think about this. If you want to change culture in your organization, whether it's your company, whether it's a Fortune 500 company, or whether you have 10 employees, what do you
Mhm.
need to change first? You need to change the language.
Yeah.
And when
Okay.
you change the language, if they know that they're coming in and the first thing they have to do in the morning is fill out 3 gratitudes, how do you think that's going to start their day?
Oh my goodness. I mean, automatically on a positive, right?
Yeah, yeah. But these are the
That's so
things that we
great.
implement with the team. So now that everybody's talking the same language, and that
Oh,
changed culture. now, we're going into communities, we're going into cities and towns and school districts and teaching this stuff or facilitating this stuff so that everybody's growing together and they all have the same language so they know what it means to be where your feet are. They know what it means to catch yourself catching yourself.
Hmm. I think that's
They
so important because it's almost easy to focus on the negative, right? I mean, it's like the
it's
lowest common denominator. It doesn't take a lot of effort, right? It actually comes to us, right? But it's intentional, sometimes difficult and purposeful activities that focus on what we're thankful for, what we're grateful for, and what are the good things in life. And so we have to train ourselves. We can't just, you know, pretend like if we don't do anything, our bodies are going to go forward in a healthy manner. We have to work with our mind and really train it. And I love what you guys are bringing to the table. This is, this is really revolutionary and very, um, very poignant to what's currently going on. I mean, I'm listening out in the workforce. We have AI automation coming in that are causing stress to people. We have some job cuts, all these things, right? And how do you frame that, right? I mean, what do you look at? And having a resilient mind says maybe there's an opportunity there that I can take advantage of. Maybe there's things I can be grateful for right now having a job where these other people don't. Maybe there's things I can be grateful for in the country I'm in, instead of looking at things and going, everything's falling apart, right? And I think that's so wonderful. Man, that's great. Well, tell us a little bit about this crisis equals opportunity book, Michael, because I've read that book. It's a great one, and you did a great job on that. So give us just a little taste of what you're talking about in there.
Well, what I want to first preface that book. I wrote that book for our team, for our family, for
Okay.
our Resilient Minds family, because how we started this Resilient Minds on the front lines was out of a crisis. So the crisis was the pandemic, and
Okay.
we had gotten together with a lot of subject matter experts and doctors and people a lot smarter than me, Joe. And my wife and I, we looked at it. Yeah, was it our idea? But we got people to believe in our vision, and those people I really want to focus on in this next segment with crisis equals opportunity, because I wanted them to know how important they were to the
Mm,
start of Resilient Minds, and that's why I wrote the book. I know it's tough for other people to write the book, so I felt like this was something I wanted to do to kind of not only be thankful for, but be able to give some of their lessons in the book, because these people were all my mentors. And
mm,
now, maybe I'm becoming somebody else's mentor. So
yeah.
it's just about always paying it forward, but I want to pay it in reverse a little bit, because
Okay.
without these subject matter experts and these doctors that are all mentioned in the book and all have a section of the book,
Hmm.
I wouldn't be we wouldn't be the company that we are right now. And I say
Yeah.
the company, but it's really a family. Resilient Minds on the front lines is a family.
Well, that's a great point, and I love it that you're humble enough to give some credit because we do get a lot of inputs from different people. Um, yeah, so I mean, people look at this title and might say you're crazy. A crisis is an opportunity. Come on, Michael. So tell us what you mean by that.
Well, here's the thing. Crisis was the pandemic. The opportunity was Resilient Minds was born.
Uh-huh.
And that's where the premise went to. So you can be looking at a situation, whether it's you're going in to have a tough conversation with an employee, you're going into, you just found out that somebody is terminal with cancer. How do you find those opportunities? And why do we wait for those opportunities? Why don't we make opportunities happen before the crisis? So
Mm,
that's really what the focus was. Crisis equals opportunity,
yeah.
because we can look at the bad in everything, and we can say, okay, this always happens to me. I'm constantly being brought down. I'm this, I'm that,
Hmm.
and you're in that victim mode. But okay, you know what? A pandemic, and on the front lines had a whole nother connotation when we were going through the pandemic, because your grocery store workers were on the front lines, your moms
Yeah.
and dads teaching were on the front line, with
Hmm.
virtual learning. Your Amazon truck drivers were on the front line. So resilient minds had a whole nother connotation, not only in the first responder field,
That's
but
so good.
and beyond.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
your grocery
Well,
store.
you're giving people a little teaser, and I love that because I want them to go read your book. It's a great book. I'm going to kind of wrap this up because we're running out of time, and there's so much to talk about with you. That's just it's easy. But I want to ask you a fun question. So,
Sure.
if resilience was a superpower, what would your superhero name be, and what would be the first thing you'd do to help the world?
Yeah, it's so funny that you asked me that question because I was just asked that question not too long ago, and I call myself the superhero, the reframer, because I
Reframer.
like to
Okay.
reframe things, and
Okay.
just like we talked about earlier, it's partly cloudy. No, it's partly sunny. The glass is half empty. No, it's half full. If it's half
That's right.
empty, it's half full. So being the reframer and looking at that from a different perspective, because we can always look at the negative and our minds want to go right down that super highway, but
Yeah.
being able to reframe it. And
So,
I'm working on something now, but I constantly ask this question, Joe, and
mhm.
I challenge everybody because I know we're winding down here, and I ask them this question, and whether it's in the beginning of a speaking event or whether it's in a class, whatever it is, and I want them to answer it after they hear the
Okay.
punchline too.
Yeah.
So the question is, how many people have heard the phrase, "It is what it is"?
Oh, I have all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we hear that all the time. "Ah, it is what it is. It is what it is." Yes. So reframing that, okay, that one little phrase, reframing it from "it is what it is" to "it is what I make it."
It is what I
I
make it.
can I can make it garbage all day long, or I can
So
say,
good.
okay, you know what? Let's turn the page. Let's turn the chapter here. Let's
I
get to
could,
the
I could, I could just live on these kind of thoughts, these inputs. This is great. I love the reframer. Okay, I'm going to refer to that as now on now the reframer.
thank you,
Now introducing Michael Pellegrino, the reframer.
Kramer.
I love it, Michael. Thank you for joining us on the strategic risk mind with Fortify Risk Management. Michael Pellegrino, his company Resilient Minds on the front lines, his book Crisis Equals Opportunity. Check him out. Great guy, great company, great people. Appreciate you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Joe, for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And that's it for today. Join us next episode. We'll look forward to it. Have a great day.